We're all good. Huge crowd tonight. Love to see it. Yo, thanks for coming out, everyone. Is it anybody's first time here? Hey, what's your name?
Welcome.
Susinder? Yeah. Nice to meet you, man. What brings you here today?
My passion.
Sweet. Can I ask how you heard about the meetup?
Through meetups.
Like meetup.com?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Data point. So this is Ethereum Vancouver, hosted in DCTRL in the beautiful city of Vancouver, British Columbia. Today we have the man, the myth, the legend, Martin Montero, who is going to be talking about the third generation of the internet, the spatial web. Take it away.
All right. Hey guys, so I think I'm going to mostly talk and then use the slide as a backup. The slides have a lot of information, and then we'll be sending the slides later so that you can do all the research if you want to later on. But basically, this conversation is a bit of my journey, how I got started in the world of Web3. So I started my work in, some of you guys know, in spatial web and VR, AR, virtual production, all that kind of world. And then all of a sudden I realized that technology generates ginormous amounts of data, and data that is three-dimensional. Not, if you thought that Facebook and Google had, or Amazon had, a lot of like violation of privacy because of the way how they handle their data. Volumetric data, which is what the spatial web creates, like 3D data, and orders of magnitude more data mining, more things they can find out about you, more ways they can sell your privacy and all that. So I started to think of, oh crap, how do I don't want to give up this tech. It's pretty awesome, it's very helpful, but how do I use it and protect myself, protect my data? And then someone told me, this is like 3 years ago, someone told me, well, that's actually what blockchain actually is really useful for. At that time, I just thought of blockchain as just buying and selling coins, like a digital version of Wall Street or something like that. But then someone told me, no, you can actually do way more with this technology than just trading. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, and that led me down the rabbit hole, and I started working for some DAOs and some things like that, and this is where this led me to. This is kind of the discovery that this led me to. A mentor of mine that created a headset called Magic Leap often says that we are about to come into a world that's kind of like Hogwarts or Avengers, where we have the same kind of special effects and we have all this like AR overlays and all that. That's all really great, and that technology is pretty amazing in what it can do. We just need to make sure that it's open source, that it's auditable, that it's censorship resistant, where you can own your own data, you can do all the things that smart contracts and protocols have offered us. Like, for example, Owen here, like there's a lot of really good uses in spatial web for zero knowledge proof tech. I'll mention that briefly. I often use this slide kind of, it's a little bit of a oversimplification, but I often use this slide of, is this really Web3? Like, overpriced JPEG of monkeys, is that really just all there is to Web3? Or, there's a clown over there named Mark Zuckerberg who is selling you this version of the metaverse that is not really the reality. The name of Les Freeman in this podcast, that was an extremely overproduced thing that had very little to do with Oculus other than they were using Oculus to view it. So my talk today hopefully get a little bit deeper, dig a little bit deeper, is this really all there is to Web3 and the metaverse. So this is where we are. So I think where, sorry, I lost my train of thought here for a second. I think where I ended up in there are two trains of thought here. Like the Germans created this thing called Industry 4.0, and in their view, it's all about how we transform the internet or society, make it much productive, make it, basically like everything you've been told. AI will take away all your jobs, all this stuff. Like we're just gonna automate this entirely. The Japanese created an opposing view called Society 5.0, which integrates all of the things the Germans did, but they take it a notch above and said, how does this benefit society? Like, okay, so if AI is taking a lot of our jobs, where do we go from there? Like, what do we do in terms of what do humans do? What do humans do with all their extra time, all their creativity, all that? And that's where spatial computing is really coming to play. Spatial computing, in simple terms, is just the next phase, the third generation of the internet. When all the computing, sometimes people call it ubiquitous computing, like it's everywhere. It's when the internet leaves the screen and it enters into our physical world. It enters into your watch, into your lenses, into displays on the street, into the clothing that you wear, all that kind of stuff. But the catch here is we are either going to go one of two ways that we are currently at. If we follow the Zuckerberg, Google, Amazon kind of that same Web 2 model, we're going to go into something a little bit more like Matt, a little bit more like a very closed society where I now know everything there is to know about John, and Christian, and Dave over there, but in a very intrusive way that profits me as the owner of that centralized knowledge. And I can do whatever I want with it. I can manipulate it. Right now, right now there's no, if you're, for example, everything that's going on right now with Israel's war in Gaza, there's no provenance to any of the things, so anybody can make up any video, any image, and say, look, this is what my side is doing, this is what the other side is doing, but there's no way to authenticate that image. There's no way to say, is this really what happened? Is this really true? Obviously, with blockchain, you could say that, no, that's not the image, that's not what happened, there's no, in law enforcement, they might call this like chain of custody. There's no way to track everything that happened. So that's what, that sort of volumetric data, that sort of thing, that sort of data that's really, really helpful. It can be exponential in many different ways. That's where it meets a Web3 protocol and says, great, yeah, we have all of that data, but let's add some security, let's add some monetization. For example, if you're a film director and you're making movies and all that, you want to protect your IP, you want to protect your songs if they show up on a movie and you don't know that they did. So that's where the commercialization of a lot of these things are really, really, really useful. It's just to give you a little bit example, if you want like an actual closer to life of what things actually, what the future of the internet will actually be, these shows actually have the most realistic version that I've seen, that many of my people that I've worked with have seen, that actually tell you, give you a glimpse of what that really will be like. The original movie, the Ready Player One, that is not really how it works. That's how, like Facebook Horizons might want you to believe it works, but these are how they actually work. We've seen the example. This is actually much more how that lay out. And now we get into the how this actually works. I think a lot of times when you might hear Web3, most people automatically think blockchain and crypto. Trading, zero knowledge proof, all these kind of things. And yes, that is a layer of the third generation, that's a key component of it, but it's missing a lot of things. It would be kind of like saying Web2 is Gmail and Instagram, or Gmail and video calls. Yes, that is an important part, but there's a lot more to it. There are a lot more sort of like these layers of, these kind of interaction layers of, there is the, obviously the physical world that we live in, and then on top of that, we're putting all this data on top of that physical world. And then there's the compute where you can actually make sense of it using a lot of AI, connect all of this big data and all of it, like for example, protocols like Covalent or the Graph that do a lot of indexing. Great, so here is an enormous amount of data from the city of Vancouver. How do I make sense of it? How do I index it? How do I organize it? How do I secure it? And then how do I let a human being interact with it and make good use of it? And some of it might be sensitive. Some of it you might not want to know who the author is or things like that. You might not want to disclose that. So in that, you institute a CK approach to protect any data that might be sensitive. But this is where I was thinking that, this has been the three primary stack of how computing normally works, and this is where we're at. Like Web3 is now much more of this. I mean, it's the store of value, the store of information, because now data is gold, data is value. So, where that store of value is also the store of data. So that is where we're moving. XR is a shorthand for extended reality or spatial computer or things like that. So this is kind of where we are, where kind of the transition of where we have come and where we're going. This is a little bit more of a Venn diagram of how all the main components. I look at things, at this kind of stuff, as we're building a whole new different kind of internet. An internet that is not screen-based or keyboard or mouse-based or touchscreen, but one that you can literally just manipulate with your hands, with your voice, and if Elon has his way, maybe even with your thoughts. And we're just taking, I often look at, Twitter or things like that, and I look at a new technology and, this week or this month or this year, blockchain is the king and everything is blockchain. But now everything is AI, and last year everything was metaverse. I'm like, that seems to me a little bit like a high school popularity game, where it's like, no, actually, they're all like key components, key building blocks in this new three-dimensional internet. So this is kind of like the explanation of that. This is a little bit more from that previous diagram, a little bit more explanation of, how the three core layers of computing are working and how they, where exactly each plays a key role, especially with like edge computing that we're doing. Protocols like Flick, I don't know if anybody here has heard the Flick network or the Flick protocol. So they're doing a lot, it's all on blockchain, but they're doing a lot of really interesting things to take GPUs for rendering, like if you're doing video and you're transcribing or rendering 3D scans or broadcasting things, they're using that to do a decentralized global version of GPUs to allow you to do that. You're not spending $10,000 a pop on a new NVIDIA chip kind of thing. So that's another really cool thing. And the same thing that's rendering all that and helping you monetize your content and helping you document, improve provenance, and helping you also encrypt it so that you can't just hack it. And I don't know if you guys saw the other day, but there's a video going around of First Lady Jill Biden just completely talking shit about Joe Biden and how he's handling this current situation. Obviously, it's not the First Lady, but someone did a deep fake, and it's very, very convincing. And you may be like, oh, there's trouble in the White House. There's a divided message here. It's like, no, that lady never said that. But how do you prove that? This, in my view of this, what I would do, for example, Solana has the Solana Saga phone or whatever. If you have something like that kind of tech in other phones, other than that particular brand that they did, while you're watching a video like that, it will actually show you this video has been signed. This video can be proven to be true. It's not a deep fake. Someone had to take their wallet and sign authenticity to this. So that this is kind of like all of this will eventually be the logic layer for all of this would be the Web3 protocol, but it would also be not just a logic layer, but a commercialization layer, the privacy layer, and all the other things that a Web3 protocol can offer you. I would look at it as this band right here, not so much this, but this band right here to me would be sort of what ties all of these little bubbles are tied by some sort of blockchain protocol to make sure they communicate and all the other things that we mentioned. This is kind of what I was talking about of it's written up in whether you are looking at things from a very broad societal lens or from a very deep down specific lens, how it affects it. So you can read all this later on. This is an example that I have often used of something that is possible today. This is not sci-fi or futuristic. Right now, I can take the same tool that was used to create the video game Fortnite or the movie Avengers Endgame. I can take Unreal Engine, which is a tool that makes metahumans. I can make a digital copy of John here, and I can upload every piece of social media, anything he's ever written online, feed it to ChatGPT large language model. So I have a working, talking John that can tell you exactly how he talks, uses the same language, talks about the same thing. But then I can just make him say what I want to say. And I might say, let's say that he and Owen were roommates and they have a door ring bell. And he calls and says, hey man, I just got off the SkyTrain, I got home, but I left my keys on the SkyTrain. Can you open the door for me? And this is just a regular Facebook, FaceTime call. So he's not suspecting anything. And even if you try to do a Turing test, the AI will really quickly go through 10 years of Facebook posts to find that one obscure answer that Owen asked to see if it was actually a human. Unless that phone call was cryptographically signed and no one could see oh, this is actually who I'm talking to. Or the phone would warn Owen, hey, watch out, this call was not signed. I cannot verify that you are really talking to who you think you're talking to. So that's one way that you can use this kind of stuff. So yeah, that to me that is a lot of there's an enormous amount of potential that this technology can use. There is right now. I spent 3 hours yesterday talking to a textile manufacturer that is embedding sensors into athletic wear and just normal underneath your clothing wear to analyze your sweat, analyze your heart rate, and a whole lot of other things about your body movements. Really helpful for you to know what's going on in your body. Really helpful for you to, after a workout, send your doctor that data and be like, hey, doc, this is my latest workout data or whatever. But do you really want every pharmaceutical company in Canada or in the U.S. knowing about everything that's going on in your body and knowing exactly what to tell you, or, being like, just kind of manipulate you in that way? Probably many of us don't want that kind of thing. So you want to be able to own that kind of data and then share it with whoever you want to share it with. So the same thing with volumetric scans, with a lot of these kind of things. Right now, from a set of maybe 3 pictures, sometimes even just one, I can make an entire 3D image out of your head. And with that, I can 3D print mask, I can 3D print, I can make a digital avatar, I can just identify you from a crowd. So a couple of weeks ago, there was a large protest downtown that I attended, and I noticed that there were several drones flying around. And when I zoomed in with my camera on the drone, they were equipped with some pretty fancy cameras to do a lot of face scanning of the crowd. Because this was not a very popular protest, according to the social media for the Vancouver city government. So they wanted to identify who was there. With blockchain stuff, you'd be like, have a little bit more control of that kind of stuff. But that's kind of that technology can be really used to send a drone to rescue a kid that is lost in the mountain, or a kid that's lost downtown, to quickly identify them. In that case, I do want someone identifying my lost child, but probably don't want someone identifying me for another thing. But yeah, that is pretty much all I had. If you want the deck, these are the top 3, the links to this are in the deck, but these are the top 3 resources that I would recommend to give you the best primer, the best kind of in-depth understanding of how this works. So yeah, that is that. Any questions?
So thank you for your talk. It was very informative. And so talking about that signing thing, so that means that the wallet will generate keys and you will sign everything with a private key. Is that the case? And then you have also to put the data on the blockchain.
So yeah, and no one has actually done this. I've actually researched this thing to see if anybody had.
So yeah, you can find it's mostly referred to as attested sensors. And so somebody at one of the ETH Global things recently, and I think there's a few other teams that have done it, but basically create sensors that as they're recording, they're signing the data. And then you can just check that, yes, it was signed by, let's say Sony releases all their microphones. and now all their new microphones have attested sensors. And you can check that this was recorded with a Sony sensor, and then you say it's the same thing for the phone, but each phone has this key or whatever. And so this is my phone. You can tell that it's coming from my phone. But yes, basically they would sign it as it's recording some data. And yes, there's also going on top of that, there's some methods where you can still, like, I saw somebody made this system where basically you could record audio and you could tune it so that it sounds better, like everybody tunes audio, but you can still verify that you didn't manipulate it to a certain degree that would make it sound like something else or whatever. You just took out background noise or something. So.
Yeah. An example, I was going to make a digital avatar of Christian talking about how much he loves the Holy Chow food across the street. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of this in a lot of what I've been doing. So one really good example of this is I used to work at a maker lab that had really amazing 3D printers for a lot of things, not just little figurines, but all kinds of things. And I have a nephew that really loves Iron Man. So I called my sister and said, hey, I texted her a link to a 3D scanning app and said, take this and make a 3D scan of your son's head. And my sister replied, did you make this app? I was like, no, I just found it on the app store. Like, do you know the people who made the app, or do you have control of the data? Like, nope and nope. And she said, okay, so you want me to take a 3D scan of my son's head and give it to randoms on the internet to do God knows what with it, so that you can make a cool little 3D, like custom-made Iron Man helmet for him. She was like, that trade-off is not worth it. She's like, if you had made the app, or if you had control of it, then I would have no problem handing over the data to you. But if it's to John Doe somewhere, no.
Yeah, that's where the open source
Yeah.
comes into play.
Yeah, and I think right now it's also really important, specifically right now, the matter of provenance. If you have spent any time on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, watching what's going on in the Middle East right now, there's an enormous, on both sides, an enormous amount of misinformation of these people did a horrible thing. And then you trace it and you're like, actually that horrible thing was a puppy in his little bed, manipulated by AI, that now looks like a horrible thing. But the original image is a cute little puppy laying in his little dog bed. But no one could, unless you're very tech savvy and start digging around, but there's no quick, easy way to verify provenance, which I think is a really good use case for blockchain tech.
Go back to your first slide. I'm not sure if I read that right about 3D data. So I understand the layering of things as you described. But are you talking about 3D data somewhere? Or did you? Or maybe not.
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah. No. Oh. Okay then. Because I was thinking. So what is a 3D data?
So yeah. So 3D data, they usually, industry-wise, they usually refer to it as volumetric data. So volumetric data is actually what your eyes capture anyway. Since your eyes see everything in 3D, volumetric data is exactly that, data of a volume. So it can be I want to know not just a picture of your face, but I want an understanding of your entire head. Or it could also be like, I want to know the width and size of your body, or it could be of your internals. Anything that it also could mean the sound of your voice, the sound of your breathing pattern, your heart rate, things of that nature. It's basically literally 3D data that our brain or our bodies were naturally born with what I call a spatial web browser or a 3D browser. Because we're navigating, and the reality that we're navigating it in a 3D way, in a volumetric way. So I don't know if that makes sense. That 3D data, now we're putting that into computers. Now we're giving computers the ability to process reality the way that because for a long time, computers have only been able to process ones and zeros and very 2D things, even 3D things on the web. It was still on a 2D surface, and you're just kind of manipulating a thing. But now, as you've seen with Apple's new Vision Pro or the Quest 3 and all that, now you can actually grab it and, like I was talking to a surgeon the other day that is literally practicing for an open heart surgery he had in a few hours with one of his things on, and literally had a human heart floating in midair, and which is doing all kinds of things to the heart to practice for the actual physical surgery on a physical human he had in a few hours. But he had that volumetric data, that 3D heart floating in midair.
So when you're talking about 3D data, it's CGI.
Not entirely. So this isn't quite like computer-generated images. This is actually from a real thing. So in this doctor's case, that heart was just a generic heart. But with scanning technology that we now have, we could actually make a realistic scanning of your actual brain or your eyes or your lungs and all that, and give that to a doctor and be like, okay, go work around with, like normally a doctor, when you go see a doctor, they're not going to reach into your chest, pull your lungs out, and like check them out, right? So they're going to make the best guess, like moving but they're limited because it's still inside your chest. With the new scanning that we now have, they're able to see a 3D representation of your actual, either outside or inside, or of a building. Sometimes a lot of architects are not using it. They send drones and things like that to do scans of buildings to figure out stress tests or where the building is structurally unsound or where there might be a leak. So things like that. There's another one of my favorite use cases. This one doesn't use any blockchain use, but it's a firefighter helmet. And when you're a firefighter, you got seconds, like you got maybe 2 or 3 seconds to make a whole bunch of decisions. You walk into a room that's full of smoke, full of fire, and you're like, all right, first priority is find any humans and get them out. And human may or may not be conscious. So this thing does infrared scan, and then it'll alert the firefighter right over there. There's a small child unconscious on the floor. I can map it. I've scanned the room, and I can map out by body heat and shape and sizes. So your first thing to do, the first decision to make is run over, grab the child, get him out of the building. Or he tells them that door is at this temperature, and if you touch it or open it, you get the backdrafting. Or that pipe is really, really hot, So your first thing to do is take your little spray thing and cool that pipe down before it blows up. So that kind of also get like 3D data that encompasses all different sensors, not just what the firefighter can see with his naked eye, but also adds thermal readings and a lot of other things that is very quickly informing a person that, to do that well of a job as a firefighter usually takes like 10, 20 years of being a firefighter and having jumped into a burning building multiple times. But you probably want more highly trained firefighters faster, and this kind of gear allows that. That's one example.
Yeah, that sounds like an extension of sensors. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I call
Thank
it
you.
augmented humanity.
So what do you think about doing that? Like, do you think most of this is going cloud because it's too intense to run client side?
I don't entirely think so. So, I mean, this is a Samsung S23 Ultra, and it's pretty powerful enough, but the 24 is getting a pretty good Snapdragon upgrade. And actually, things like the Fleet Protocol are doing things where the AI is smart enough to figure out what things can I do locally, what things can I do cloud side. And the AI is getting really good because some of the things are really, really like split second. There was one, it's not superfluid. There was one blockchain protocol that was doing really interesting things with surgeons. Because when you're a surgeon or a firefighter or something like that, exact precision really matters. You can't be like, wait 3 seconds for it to go to the cloud, then come back. That 3 seconds means life or death. Or that 1 millimeter off is the difference between you cut the right place and allow that person to breathe, or you cut the wrong place and you paralyze the person.
Yeah. So then, I think I have an answer for it, or what I think is the answer for it, but to maintain privacy there, like, you're sending all this data to the cloud or blockchain, but it's not private necessarily, right?
Yeah.
So what did you see as like solutions there?
So yeah, that is what I've been trying to figure out. Like, I mean, so one of them, I think the guy that created or the main architect of the Solana Saga phone, I think he was a speaker here once before. His name's Steve. He lives in Vancouver. But the way that he built that phone has a lot of really interesting security features.
Right.
I told him my layman's definition. I told him what you have done is built a cold wallet inside of a phone.
Yeah.
And the way also the screen is you need actual human eyes to read what's on the screen because the OS cannot actually read what is on the screen.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways to block the thing where, like, yes, the human with their eyes looking at the screen can tell what's going on, but even if you put a bunch of hackers and trackers and all that into the phone,
Right.
there's no way that you can know what's going on because the OS is not
Right.
reading it, and the OS can't figure out what's on the screen.
That's still client side though.
Yeah.
But my answer for that I think would be like fully homomorphic encryption, which is where you can encrypt it, send it to the cloud, and they never see it.
Yeah.
But that also increases the complexity of the operations that are happening on that data.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think it does, but I think we're moving at such the exponential rate that we are moving at with both camera app, AI, and all that is going really, really, really fast. I think, by January, March, a lot of that complexity gets easier.
Yeah, I think we're also like in a race of hardware and software, and like always have been. But yeah, we'll see if Moore's law is a thing or if it's just not.
How small can we go when it comes to size in CPUs, like nano, 9 nanometers, 5 nanometers? Now, if we want to go lower, from what I understood, we have to use quantic. That's the only way, because that small, it means it becomes quantum, you know what I mean? So the limitation, are we limited by that as of today? That's why CPUs are getting not so... I don't know if we are right now. But it seems like we reached the bottom limit in terms of size.
Yeah, well, I didn't get to finish the article, but I was reading that there's a company that's going the opposite way of Elon Musk. Instead of putting chips in people's brains, they're putting people's brains on chips.
Yeah, that's. I think it's called an organoid.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
I mean, I was just reading about it a couple
That's
of
one
days
of the
ago.
terms. Yeah, when you. Yeah.
And now, I think maybe we can no longer go much smaller, but it will get a lot more efficient, a lot more faster, and a lot more like this dynamic between client and cloud and figuring out, the. So I last year I was briefly involved with a project that wanted to create what Mosaic did for the original internet, how it took it from like just a bunch of terminals and very hard to use into a web browser. Some people wanted to create a 3D Mosaic, a 3D browser kind of thing. And I called it the edge computing for your brain. So I think it's going to be in that scenario where either using the way that the human brain works on a chip or some other way to do the relay race between. I think also these things are getting not just, this isn't particularly a small phone, but they're getting really, really good. Like for example, tonight I didn't really worry about not bringing my laptop because I knew that I could turn this phone into a laptop if I just plug it into a screen. So I think that combined with glasses, which we are now a lot closer to, glasses or phones or, about an hour ago on the bus right down here, I was literally watching a video of surgeons using a combination of AR and thermal scanning to project veins onto the arm so that they can be found easier. So yeah, I think we're getting at this combination of it's not really going to be a killer thing. It's not going to be a VR visor or this or but I think a lot of it is going to be multiple, like the same way what we work today. We don't do one thing. We wear glasses for the eyes and shoes for the feet and all these. We combine it all into one operating system for our body for whatever that it might need. And I think my aim that I keep going back for in Web3 is I got involved for all these other reasons, all these other tech stuff that you can do with it, like homographic encryption, like all of these things that, yes, at the end of the day, to power a lot of this, there is a finance background to it, which is the trading of the coins and all of that stuff. The same way that Web 2.0 uses Wall Street to do it. We just found a better way to do Wall Street. We found a better way to make that financial system work better than the other financial system. But that financial system has to be tied into the rest of the economy. And that's the part that I came in to be like, great, you guys figure out the financial structure part of it, the trading, the buying and selling of stocks and all that. We'll come over here and figure out how to use the same tech, but for other purposes. Like signing a call so that I know that I'm really talking to you and not some scammer. Or signing a video so that I know that Joe Biden is not out there talking shit about Joe Biden. So, yeah, I think that's where.
So yeah, all is good until we lose the encryption kind of right. It's all about the encryption. Because it used to be forbidden before. Before the 70s, encryption was not allowed for the public. It just became, not on its own. Many people fought for it to make it public. But he might come back as something that we cannot use anymore. So I don't know.
I think that genie might be out of the bottle. I don't know that you can put encryption back. Way too many people that know what to do with it or what it is. So I don't know that that genie is able to be put back in the bottle. But yeah, anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. Yeah, we hold these kind of things every week at the same time, same place. We also do. I like to host a ZK study group. We're switching to every other Wednesday, so next week, 6:30 p.m. we'll be here talking about different things in ZK, all different levels of experience. So whatever you're interested in learning there, we can take a look at for sure. And then we also have every Saturday noon we do a Nouns Running Club, just an easy 5-kilometer run starting from the Cactus Club in Cole Harbor at noon. So ask me if you need more info for that. Anything else? Nope. Okay, cool. And for to our Discord, if you're not in it, there's a QR code there. There's another one in the back behind the red door to get into our Discord for all announcements of everything coming up in the future. And a POAP in the back. We cycle through it every... Oh, it's moved back in the corner there. So if you don't have it for this quarter, you can get a little NFT that says you've been here. Whether you want to do that or not, but it's fun. So yeah, cool. Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you next week.